The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past is a video game. A video game where you play as the legendary hero Steve. Well, you're not really a legendary hero yet. Right now, you're just a dude having a nap in a rainstorm. Your uncle tells you not to leave the house, and that he will be right back. But screw that, I'm a strong, independent 12-ish-year-old who doesn't need some uncle telling me what to do. So I grabbed the fantasy equivalent of a flashlight and I was off to the castle. After a brief walk to the castle, I found the least hidden secret entrance ever created, and mere feet away from the entrance I saw my uncle, who was nearly dead. I guess he fell and broke his knees or something. It was a pretty long fall. But that's not what's important right now, though. What is important is that since he's dead, guess who gets to take his sword? That's right, me. In his dying breath, he told me that Zelda is my... something. I think he meant to say name, so that he could clear up any confusion there might be about the title of this game. With a cool new dead uncle sword in my possession, I set off into the castle, probably to figure out what Zelda is. Eventually, I made my way into the dungeon portion of the castle, and I made a very valid point as to why I was playing the game so poorly. I just thought I should establish that I'm not bad at video games, I'm just inattentive right now because I've played this intro like a million times. This is the game I use to test stuff when I'm running, like trying to set up a CRT or something. Because that's a thing I do, I collect cathode ray tube televisions, like some kind of maniac. Then I found the first and best item in this game, the ring. Look at it go. Ooh. I then utilized the unparalleled power of the ring to defeat the first boss, the Mace Guy. In the recording, I said that I should make a Rafflecopter joke, and Not Incredibly Tired Me disagrees immensely with that statement and idea. It is not 2012. I then rescued Zelda, who gave me the lowdown on what's going on. Steve, listen carefully. The wizard is magically controlling all the soldiers in this castle. I learned that I've been killing innocent people who have been possessed. Oops. I think you could probably say that this constitutes self-defense in court. She also told me that she knows about a secret exit in the castle, so I went there to exit secretly. Heading through the secret passage that I think might just be the castle sewer, I arrived at a church. There, the pastor told me that I should find the village elder for more information, so I was off to Kakariko Village to find him. In the village, I learned that I was wanted by the state for quote-unquote kidnapping Zelda, which gave me more reason to preemptively act in self-defense against the castle soldiers. I was also told by a woman with dough on her hair that the elder had fled the village and hasn't been seen for a while. She also told me about the Master Sword, unprompted, so I looked around the rest of the village with the intent to get information about Mr. Elder. While looking around, I found a bottle in the back of a barn which was going to be very useful for the rest of the game. I also wanted to buy a bottle from the world's greatest dude on a carpet, but I was too poor at the moment. I made a very astute observation about what hotels have. Why does this guy have 6 beds? I always assumed it was like a hotel or something. But hotels aren't just piles of beds, they have like rooms. Or at the very least like a sink or something in them, I don't know. And finally found someone who knew where this senior citizen was. Hey Steve, Elder, are you talking about the grandpa? Okay, but don't tell any of the bad people about this. He's hiding in the palace past the castle. I will mark the spot on your map. Here you are. So I went off to the palace, which is different from a castle if you're wondering, and met the Elder. He gave me the lowdown, telling me that I've got to find 3 pendants before I get to have the Sword of Evil's Bane. Which is my goal now, I guess. Necklaces. Go get them. He told me to go get the first pendant as a test, because apparently saving a deposed monarch from an active assault on their castle was not impressive enough for this man. So I made my way into the first level, the Eastern Palace, which is such a generic, boring name. I guess I'll rename it myself. So, I made my way into the Palace of Infinite Doom and Death, and also me, who is in the dungeon to beat it and claim victory. Yeah, that's pretty good. Anyways, I made my way through the palace with little effort because it's the first dungeon in the game and they usually don't make those the hardest one. Eventually, I got the big key, which can open many locks that smaller keys cannot. If you're wondering how much many is, it's like 3 locks. The first of these 3 locks was on the big chest, which contained the bow. It's like the boomerang, but it's harder to hit things with.
What?
After going through a few rooms filled with far too many cannonballs and shooting a few cyclopses in the face, it was time for the first real boss of the game. And guess what, sucker? It's actually 6 bosses in one. I'll bet that makes them really hard to beat, and I'll have to try so many times to beat them, and oh, you can just stand there and shoot arrows into them. During this fight, I was very glad that I had a SNES controller instead of using the keyboard on my real Super Nintendo. And I don't have a very good keyboard setup, honestly, for these kind of games. SNES games. I will continue later. Okay, I will continue now. But I play with WASD for movement, and then JKL semicolon for J is B, K is Y, L is A, and semicolon is X, and then Z and X are start and select. It's not good. I cannot not recommend it enough. Where were we? Oh yeah, I got the Pendant of Courage for killing 6 people. I took it back to the Sahasrara hut, where Sahasrara resides, for my reward. And what a reward it is. The legendary, the fabled, the one and only. Run fast boots. They let you run fast. It's very nice. He also told me that there's an item I should be on the lookout for. I'm sure I'll remember to go and do that in a timely manner. With the first pendant down, there's only 2 more to claim, so I went and started claiming. Before I claimed my next pendant, I went around to Kakariko and got myself a few things. I bought a bottle, I used explosives in a home to open a shed, and permanently borrowed a bug-catching net from a sick kid. Okay, now it's time to get the blue pendant. It's in the desert, locked behind a giant pillar. But first, I stopped at my local library to get a book on pillar moving. I guess the librarian was out, and they took all the library ladders with them, so I just slammed into the bookshelf to get the book I needed. On my way into the desert, I met an average middle-aged man standing by a sign. Instead of following the instructions that the sign clearly laid out, I decided to talk to him, and then destroy his sign, because I am a hero. But now we're really at the blue pendant, for real. I used my pillar-moving book to move the pillars, and that gave me access into the dungeon. And I just did some standard Zelda things, and eventually I found the item contained within. It's the Power Glove, better known as the Stronk Gloves, which gives me the inhuman ability to pick up medium-sized rocks. That are light gray. You can't pick up the black ones. This is because black is a heavier color. I used the gloves to get into the second part of the dungeon, where the boss was hiding behind an extendo wall. And this boss is actually 3 bosses! They're flying snake, bug, worm things! Horrifying! I killed them quickly, which got me the blue pendant of power, leaving only 1 pendant left until I can go and get a cool new sword. Obtaining this next pendant was a challenge, requiring me to go through Death Mountain just to get there. In the caves on my way up, I met an old man who I decided to escort to the top of the mountain. He rewarded me with exposition for helping him. After getting the old man to his house, he gave me an actual reward in the form of a magic mirror. I then immediately got pulverized by a boulder. But with the mirror in hand, I can now go into the dark world, which is like the normal world, but you're in Gary, Indiana now. Horrifying. I would also like to take this time to point out that this game is called A Link to the Past, despite you traveling between the light and dark worlds, not the past and present. I made my way into the Tower of Hera, or as it's also known, the Blue Pendant level. Hi, we here at the Flurg Bungler YouTube channel would like to apologize. In this clip, I say that the Tower of Hera is sometimes known as the Blue Pendant Dungeon. This is incorrect. It is actually the Red Pendant Dungeon. I apologize for any tragedy or death this may have brought upon you or your family. Something I was not told going into this is that it's actually the Pinball Dungeon, and I'm the pinball. It's a bad time. Oh, and you can also fall down floors. Really cool stuff. Love this dungeon. I made my way to the top of the tower, getting the moon pearl along the way. It lets me keep my form in the dark world, which is useful. But it's also not needed to beat the dungeon, which is weird. Most of the time, the item you get in the dungeon has some use in the dungeon. But no, it's only useful in the overworld. I arrived at the first boss, whose gimmick is that they are the single worst thing to ever happen in this game. They can knock you off onto the floor below, fully healing the boss and forcing you to restart the fight. It's really cool. I love it. I love the Tower of Hera. It's so cool. At least this mechanic has been fully explored and will never return in this game. With that done, I had all 3 pendants, which meant it was finally time to go and get the Master Sword. But not before I resolved a sibling conflict with explosives.
Yeah, Steve, I'm quarreling with my younger brother. I sealed the door to his room.
Getting me access to a piece of heart after I proved my skills as a speedrunner. In the Lost Woods, I actually had 2 goals.
The mush and the sword.
I got the Master Sword first, and then it's revealed that Zelda is getting kidnapped.
Steve, help! The soldiers are coming to Sanctuary! Aye!
I ran to go help her, but not before finding the mushroom, which was a little more important to me at the moment. I'll be honest, I spent a pretty long time searching for the witch hut to give the witch residing outside of it the mushroom, and I probably should have been using that time searching for Zelda. Oh well, Aghanim seems like a pretty nice guy. I'm sure he'll wait. The church also happened to be on the way, so I stopped in to see how Zelda and the best pastor I've ever met were Oh, he has died. Or maybe he's just chillin'. Look at him vibe. Wait, never mind, he's definitely dead. You can tell because he's strobed out of existence. On my way to rescue Zelda from the castle, she was moved to the castle by the way, I decided I should explain why I'd gone to all this effort to get the Master Sword.
Yeah, and now the Master Sword. You might say, what's so special about the Master Sword? Well, for starters, it's blue. And blue is a very nice color.
Also on my way to rescue Zelda, I found the witch shop. That seemed important enough for me to stop caring about Zelda's well-being for at least a few minutes. Like I said, Aghanim's a pretty forgiving guy. I'm sure he'll understand. With mushroom delivered and a free sample of medicine taken,
here, taste a sample of the red potion. Hee. Imagine you go to Walgreens just like, hey man, you want to try the Benadryl? It's good, man. Trust me, it's legit Benadryl. We've got samples.
It was finally time to go save Zelda. For real. Well, it would have been. I might have gotten lost. But I had a solution for that. Saving and quitting to the menu is totally something that ancient knights did, right? Oh, and I messed it up. It's like they say, second time's the charm when it comes to teleporting. Okay, now I'm in the castle. It only took a few minutes after Zelda was kidnapped. I made pretty good time if we're being honest. I started my way up Aghanim's tower of a million enemy encounters and made my way through all of them. I'll be honest, it was tedious. But if someone's life is on the line, I'm willing to put myself through a minor amount of tedium. Any more than that, and it's up in the air. The Elder contacted me and told me what I would need to do to defeat Aghanim. I might have paraphrased the dialogue a little bit, but I'm sure I got the main point across.
Listen, Steve, even with the Master Sword, you cannot inflict physical damage, harm on the wizard. You must find a way to return his own evil magic power to him. I'm talking Pong, baby. Play some Pong with him.
But after all of that, I made it, and just in time to save Zelda. Unlike the priest, who I was just a few seconds late to save, so I was really glad that I was able to make it here in time to save her. Really, it'd be incredibly unfortunate if I had delayed even a little more to... Hubris wins again. But no matter, there's an evil fiend that needs slaying, and I'm just the ping-pong world champion to do it. Really, it's intense. Just look at all the action happening on this screen right now. I beat Aghanim, but unfortunately he was upset that I pinged his Pong point blank.
Well met! Like the true hero that you are. But I am not ready to admit defeat yet. I will draw you into the battle. Look at him go.
Immediately, I was hit with a massive lore dump from our local man with unpronounceable name. Basically, he told me that I should go and get some crystals from some dungeons. It's some pretty intense stuff. Oh, and they used the phrase, Link the Worlds, making me further wonder why this game wasn't called A Link Between Worlds. I guess they fixed that problem in 2013. It was once again time to go to the Palace of Infinite Doom and Death, and also me who is in the dungeon to beat it and claim victory, but this time, it's evil and dark. And the door is shut. I had to pay a monkey to solve the puzzle. Once inside, I encountered the world's easiest puzzle, some invincible turtles, and, most importantly, the Wiggle Boys. That's right, we're in another pinball machine that stars me as the pinball. I also encountered a group of these mice things. They copied whatever I did. One of them was red. I don't really know what to say about them, other than the fact that I think they are pretty cool. The extendo wall made its triumphant return, this time going to the right instead of the left. A revolutionary new step in extendo wall history, if you ask me. Behind the extendo wall was another wall, made of pegs. I realized I would need to search far and wide to make my way into this room. And so I did. I explored for a long time. Eventually, I found the tool I needed to progress. The hammer. It hammers. So I went back down to the room, smashed the pegs in their stupid faces, and immediately got stuck again. And so began the search for a single small key. And that search lasted a completely reasonable 19 minutes and 7 seconds. So I made my way down into the cool peg room for a third time, and this time I actually managed to leave it. After that, it was a simple matter of massacring some turtles, pushing some blocks, killing some more turtles, and we were into what, you might ask? The boss room. And what is the boss? It's a thing. It's evil. I don't really get what it's supposed to be. I kill it after hammering its face off, because I'm a good person who loves animals. It exploded, which I don't think is a standard practice for animals that die from being stabbed. Whatever. It's crystal time. There was a girl in the crystal, which can't have been very comfortable. She gave me a lore dump, and then the world was opened to me. This is probably the coolest part of the game. It's pretty much fully open now, and I was free to do the dungeons in whatever order I pleased for the most part. But first, there were two things that I wanted to do. Firstly, I went to this grotto and talked to this dweeb sitting on a tree stump. I used a shovel to dig out his flute in the real world.
That was fortunate.
And then went back to the Dark World to play it for him. I don't think I did a very good job because he died. Like, actually. I think that's some kind of record for bad music. Turns out dead people can't own flutes, so it was mine now. So I then took the flute to Kakariko and played it in front of the wind vane. It revealed the best character in this game, the bird. The bird is actually the most important thing in this game, but we won't learn why until later. But for the moment, the bird also offers fast travel, which I used to go and do the second thing on my 2-item to-do list, which was to go and get the ice rod. It was easy and not very interesting, so I won't describe it. Like I mentioned earlier, you can do these dungeons in pretty much any order you want, so I decided to go straight to Dungeon 4. While I was taking the bird to Kakariko, that's where Dungeon 4 is, by the way, I decided to give my brief review on Omori.
Yeah, Omori. Great game for if you hate yourself or feeling happy. Really good for that.
Which I had stayed up until 3 a.m. playing the night before. That's healthy. I arrived in the Village of Outcasts, which is the Dark World equivalent of Kakariko Village. A sign states that it does not welcome people without rupees. I was not very concerned about this because I had the maximum amount of money you can possibly have. But that's besides the point right now. Dungeon 4's real name is Blind's Dungeon. It was the first time I encountered these little star things that turn you into a rabbit, which is very annoying because rabbits are famously pacifists. And I am famously a violencist. It's a real conflict of interest. This dungeon is kind of boring, so I'm skipping ahead a bit. Just know that I ran around and opened chests, got keys, and did a wide variety of standard Zelda things. After I had finished doing standard Zelda things, I went into a room and made an impromptu skylight. Despite it being a fairly ugly piece of interior renovation, it would actually come in quite handy later. And I found the maiden in this dungeon.
Oh, thank you very much. You saved my life. Please take me outside.
She wasn't in a crystal, though. I'm sure that's fine. It's not like she's the boss of the dungeon or anything. This is foreshadowing. While I was taking the maiden on a tour of her own prison, I got the Titan's Mitt, which is colloquially known as the Strong Gloves 2. It makes your strong level go up to 2. Where was I? Oh, yeah, prison tour. I decided to show her off the cool skylight I made, and she was not a fan. Rude, honestly. I put a lot of work into that thing. So I killed her. Turns out she wasn't even real, just a head and a sheet. Crazy stuff. So after I killed the fake maiden, I got the real maiden, crystal and all. She gave me some more lore, which was useful.
Steve, because of you, I can escape from the clutches of evil monsters. Thank you. As the wise men sealed the way to the Dark World, the Knights of Hyrule defended them from the attacks of evil monsters. I heard that the Knights of Hyrule were nearly wiped out in that battle. You are perhaps the last one to carry on the bloodline of the Knights. It is ironic that the last one in the line has the potential to become the hero of legend. I don't really see how that's ironic. Surely you can destroy Ganon? Do you understand? Yes. Not at all. Yes. May the way of the hero lead you to the Triforce.
Before I tackled my next dungeon, which I had decided was going to be Dungeon 2, I realized that I would need the flippers to actually get into it. So I began heading into Zora's domain, where the flippers are sold. But flippers are only for the worthy, so the Zora attempt to murder every single potential customer that they have before they can even see the price of the item they want to buy. Along the way, I had a philosophical moment that won't get answered until later in the run.
So, are they shooting fireballs or like just red balls of thing or what?
Turns out I was good enough to see the price of the flippers, which was very high, literally requiring me to have half the potential currency I could have at one time. But luckily, I was rich enough to purchase these overpriced flippers. Seriously, I looked up the price of flippers and it's around $25, $50 a pair. This is insane. After taking a bird trip, I realized that I could use my newly acquired Strong Glove 2 to get an upgrade for my sword. But before I finished that quest, I found a blood altar underneath the blacksmith house. Hitting it with some comedy dust revealed the evil bat, I think. He's doing his best to be evil, at least. Can't blame him for trying. I thought he cursed me, so I actually Googled it. Loudly.
So did he actually curse me?
Turns out he didn't. That's nice. Moving on. It was time to go and upgrade my sword. To accomplish this, I saved a frog from a situation he definitely could have gotten out of on his own. And then oh no.
This window isn't sized properly.
I don't think people would have noticed if I didn't point it out. Oh well, I will own up to this horrible mistake. Anyways, after giving the dwarves ample time to prepare for me, I asked them to temper my sword, and so they did. While I was waiting for my sword to finish getting upgraded, I went back into the Dark World and discovered a new chest sitting in the dark version of the blacksmith's house. It was locked from the inside, which must have been difficult to do. And so began the long haul to take this chest to that guy I harassed earlier. You know the one, right? I destroyed his sign? Yeah, you know him. My first attempt at a pacifist run en route to the middle-aged man ended as soon as I remembered I had a hammer sitting in my back pocket. The guy revealed that he knew that I knew that he knew he was a former thief, which I didn't know that I knew that. I promised to keep his secret, which he had just unintentionally revealed to me, and in return, I got what I described as a...
Ooh, nice, that's a baguette. That right there is a fat, hearty, healthy baguette.
With that out of the way, I returned to the village to collect my brand new sword. Well, I guess it was the same sword, but improved. Either way, it's orange now. Orange means stronger, if you didn't know. After that brief major distraction, it was time to tackle Dungeon 2. Right after I reset the water again. Oops. And that water does need to be reset, because this is the water dungeon. Everyone loves water dungeons, right? Right. This one even has little pond skimmer dudes. Look at them go! After doing some intense block pushing, it turned out I forgot to press a switch. Oops.
And the way forward.
Eventually, I got the big key, which led to me getting one of the coolest items in this game, the hook shot. Man, the hook shot is cool. It's like a grappling hook, but it's called the hook shot instead of a grappling hook. I'll be honest, this dungeon isn't very interesting to watch, so we're skipping straight to the boss. It's some kind of weird cloud eyeball symbiotic relationship of death, or something. I don't know. I killed all the boss's clouds and he got pissed. He did not, however, get stronger. It was not a very hard fight.
That was not a very hard boss fight.
So with that, the second crystal was mine. Well, the third crystal. The crystal labeled number 2, which was the third crystal I collected, was mine. And then it was Lordum time, as had become tradition at this point.
Steve, because of you, I can escape from the clutches of the evil monsters. Thank you. The Triforce will grant the wishes of whoever touches it, as long as that person lives. That is why it was hidden in the Golden Land. Only a select few knew of its location, but at some point that knowledge was lost. The person who rediscovered the Golden Land was Ganondorf the Evil Thief. Luckily, he couldn't figure out how to return to the Light World. Well, remember that you have magical powers, which only the hero can make the most of. There are some other magical warping points like the one you saw on Death Mountain. By using them, you can go between the two worlds and find the evils hidden within the Dark World. You are the only one who can destroy Ganondorf, the thief. No, Ganon, the King of Darkness. We're just getting rid of the dwarf. Do you understand? Yes.
So I like my little water stays. May the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.
At this point, it was time for me to take on my own personal brick wall within this game. Dungeon 3. I had never beaten it in any of my playthroughs of this game, so now it was time to take it on. Dungeon 3 has an interesting gimmick. It's not actually one dungeon you go through straight on. It's like a collection of small dungeons that you have to go through in the Lost Woods. It's very interesting. After 6 minutes and 13 seconds of searching, I found out that I had to walk over this one tile that definitely looks like you could not walk over it to get into the dungeon. I was upset.
You gotta be Jerome, and that cannot be what they intended for you to do, right? You gotta be Josh J. Jehovah Jewitsu.
The first thing I found in this dungeon was the big chest, which would have been a lot more useful if I had obtained the big key. Unfortunately, as I was only around 30 seconds into the dungeon proper, I did not. After much dungeoneering, I found the big key, which I then used to open the big chest. Inside was the fire rod. It's like the ice rod, but the opposite. I then used the fire rod to burn down some kind of bug thing and get access to the final portion of the dungeon. I'd like to take a moment of this video to give a very special award to dungeon number 3. It's the Terrible Dungeon I Hate award. It won with flying colors. Anyways, the boss was this kind of spike moth thing, and with a bit of fire, it went down pretty easily. Remember, if you see a moth in your home, kill it with fire. Anything less than that will not guarantee its death. Once again, it was crystal time, which also meant it was lore time. I wonder if they just don't have anything better to do. They just spend all their time in Crystal Jail preparing their speech for when Steve finally picks them up. I can't imagine there's much else to do when you're trapped in a magical rock. It's what I would do, personally.
Steve, because of you, I can escape from the clutches of the evil monsters. Thank you. Do you know the prophecy of the Great Cataclysm? This is the way I heard it. If a person who has an evil heart gets the Triforce, a hero is destined to appear. And he alone must face the person who began the Great Cataclysm. If the evil one destroys the hero, nothing can save the world from its wicked reign. From his wicked reign. Only a person of the Knights of Hyrule, who protected the royalty of Hylia, can become the hero. You are their bloodline, aren't you? Then you must rescue Zelda without fail. Do you understand? Yes. Not at all.
May the way of the hero lead you to the Triforce.
By this point, I had decided that my defense and offense were both sorely lacking. So I went off to the Lake of Ill Omen in the Dark World and got the Quake Medallion. after trying to figure out what I was actually supposed to throw in the lake. It's a powerful spell that I was going to need later to progress. I kind of lied about needing a stronger offense because I used the spell in combat maybe once in the entire game. Then, in the light world, the Lake of Ill Omen had been replaced with the Waterfall of Wishing. I threw my shield in and got a better one in return for being an honest person. This one was red and answered my question I had about if the little red balls that were being shot at me were fireballs. They were. I had decided that it was time to take on Dungeon 5 now that I had the fire rod, because I needed it to even get past the first room. This level was the ice dungeon. This was immediately concerning to me because I had already been subject to 2 pinball machines, and I was not thrilled about being forced to ride the slip and slide of death. I encountered a new enemy in the form of a skeleton knight, who I speedran the scientific process on.
You cannot destroy the skeleton knight with the sword alone. When he collapses, he is vulnerable to another weapon. Hammer. Probably. No.
Eventually, through sheer luck, I figured out that they are weak to bombs, as I would assume most living things are. But I guess these guys are dead. You can never guess what dead guys are weak to.
I have good news for whoever might happen to view this footage other than I. And that is rejoice, for I can mute the beeping for you.
You're welcome for that. After searching for an incredibly long time, I found the big key of the dungeon. This meant that I could get the item in the chest, which was the blue tunic. This halves all damage taken, which is very nice. I also found the fairy fountain, which was nice because I had been dying a lot in this dungeon. At this point, the dungeon was really just a bunch of backtracking, which was kind of annoying. So we're skipping to the boss. It's a cloud and ice. It was super hard to figure out what needed to be done to damage it. After melting its icy shield, I decided to use the Quake Medallion on it. It did 0 damage. Wonderful! At this point, you know the drill. Crystal. Lore.
Steve, because of you, I can escape from the clutches of the evil monsters. Thank you. They say Hylia people controlled mysterious powers, as did the 7 wise men. But the blood of Hylia has become thin over time. We who carry the blood of the 7 wise men do not possess strong power anymore either. Our powers will increase if we mix the courage of the knights with the wisdom of the wise men. Only a short time remains until the great gate at the castle linking worlds opens completely. If you defeat Ganon, this will vanish and the Triforce will wait for a new holder. I believe in you. Good luck.
Do you understand? Yes. May the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.
Now it was time for Dungeon 6. Or so I thought. This dungeon is located in the Swamp of Evil, which proudly proclaims that it has both no entrance and no escape. No entrance is correct. I spent an hour looking for a way to get into this stupid swamp. Here is a brief list of things that I found in that hour that were not the entrance to the Swamp of Evil. An old man in a cave, a piece of art, a homeless guy and his bottle, a bee, $20, another piece of art, the Bombo spell, yet another piece of art, a magic ray granting invincibility, a shooting gallery, $50, a bunch of money, the entrance to Dungeon 7, which I can't beat until I get the item from Dungeon 6, one last piece of art for the road, Ganon's blinking Tower of Evil, the ether spell completing the magic trifecta, the cane of Burna, which is useful but not the cane I need at the moment. Did I mention that I don't like the low health noise?
I don't like this beeping.
And finally, after 59 minutes and 54 seconds of searching, I realized that the real entrance to the Swamp of Evil was the friends we made along the way.
Okay, I gotta find a way into the unenterable poison swamp, I guess. It would pain me to use a wiki. You were probably supposed to use the invulnerability cane. Wait, travel point 6? Yo! Bird up. Bird is the word. Bird for national president of everything. The bird, they're the best. I love this bird.
Yes, it was that simple, and I think the bird deserves a medal. After all this searching and suffering, I had finally made it to the entrance of Dungeon 6. And guess what? I was out of magic, so I couldn't open the door to get inside. Kids, this is a lesson. Sometimes life does a stand-up comedy act at your expense, and you have to deal with that. So I went to the witch shop and bought some magic restoring potions, and with that, I was in. This dungeon marks the first appearance of the Wizrobes, who I'm just a huge fan of. Look at them, they're just little dudes, I love it. This dungeon also features the world's first silent giant sliding murder spike ball. There's a lot of spikes in this level, like a lot. Maybe even too many. I contacted the official Flurgbungler Spike Analysis team, which consists of one 76-year-old woman named Dolores, and she said that there are definitely too many spikes, sweetie. I would not doubt Dolores. I'll be honest, I don't really have a whole lot to say about this dungeon. It's got some loops in it, which is pretty neat. I do love me a good loop around. There's also this pretty cool puzzle where you have to realize that torches stay lit when you go to a different screen, but I solved it before I went and saw how the path was blocked, which meant that I was lost for a while because I didn't think to throw myself down the pit I was supposed to. Oh, look, laser eyes. I'll bet those won't show up in a later dungeon or anything. Where was I? Oh right, I was lost. I had been for 7 minutes and 42 seconds, until I realized I was supposed to drop down that pit. I was not thrilled.
Okay, it can't be those pits. Can this? This better not be just like, oh, this one's a screen transition. I hate this game. You know how every other black pit in the game just straight up damages you? This one doesn't do that.
At least I now had the big key, which opened up access to more of the level, which includes a room with a button that has to be held down, but with nothing to hold it down with. If only there was an item that solved this problem.
Oh look, it's the item that solves this problem.
After getting the brick cane, I had to solve the world's easiest maze. Seriously, I've seen harder mazes on the back of kids' menus. I then did some more adventuring that was so devoid of anything of real note, I have decided to limit its presence in this video to this one sentence. And then I was at the boss. It's another eye, surrounded by smaller eyes. After killing the King Eye's eye minions, it decided that it needed to fight me one-on-one. I thought there was going to be a second phase involving the 4 eyes left over in the eye goop, but nope.
Look, man, I see your, spare contingency of eyeballs, and I'm not gonna... What? I thought he was gonna, go back into the goop and a second phase would begin or something. What? That was it?
Bewildered, I got the 6th crystal.
Oh, I didn't find all the treasure in the dungeon without fail. Zahasrala will be so disappointed in me. I'll probably say something like, Steve, what's your problem, man?
Steve, because of you, I can escape from the clutches of the evil monsters. Thank you. Ganon captured us because he couldn't break free of the seal of the wise men with his power alone. And then, using the wizard Aghanim as his pawn, he drew us to the Dark World. After cracking the seal with our powers, he sealed us inside these crystals. He then gave us to his loyal monsters, but Ganon didn't plan on your getting this far. Now, Princess Zelda is waiting for you inside of Turtle Rock. Wait, Turtle Rock? Like the guys behind the first Left 4 Dead game and a worse version of the first Left 4 Dead game? That's pretty neat.
Please hurry. Do you understand? Yes. Not at all. May the way of the hero lead you to the Triforce. Success.
Since this was the last normal dungeon in the game, I decided that it was time to get a bit better equipped before I took it on. I still had no clue how to destroy this cracked wall, and that'll be important in a second. The entrance to the dungeon had a warning that I should have magic restoring potions before I took it on, and I heeded that warning. At the Dark World bomb shop, they had something new in stock. It was a giant bomb. It's so big I had to carry it behind me. I accidentally detonated the bomb seconds after spending 100 United States dollars on it by accidentally jumping off a cliff and abandoning my bomb child. Oh well, You know what they say, if at first you don't succeed, that sucks. I then purchased another bomb and planted it at the undetonatable wall, and it very quickly became the detonatable wall. Inside was a fairy who upgraded my sword to become the strongest it could be. With my preparations complete, it was time to take on Turtle Rock. Oh, turns out the brick cane is also the platform cane, and you can ride those platforms along a rail. This actually leads to some really neat puzzles and challenges. It's a nice change of pace, like the school torch puzzle that I spent way too long on because I didn't realize I could change the direction of the platform. Because I wasn't a pro gamer, I gave up and tried a different path. Turns out there isn't one, so I had to do this to proceed. So I tried again and got it first try. Turns out knowing you can steer helps a lot when you're piloting something. Really? This is my reward, a rolling pin of death? 2 rolling pins of death. It's even worse. Oh jeez, they are rolling pins of death. Oh, sweet, the map. I always wondered about those in Zelda games. If I were the evil master of a dungeon, I would keep the map of my lair of evil in my room. Not in a chest where the person breaking in could have it. I'd also leave the compass that says exactly where I am in there with me as well. Honestly, it just seems like common sense, but then again, maybe they're required to put the map there. Maybe it's in case of a fire. Good on you, evil boss. Way to meet fire safety codes. Where was I? Oh, right, doing standard Zelda things. Eventually, I reached a room full of tubes, which was pretty neat. Taking the first tube led me to even more tubes, which led to more tubes still, eventually ending up with me getting the big key. And then I took one more tube back for good measure. Eventually, my dungeoneering brought me to a completely dark room that had a maze of tracks with intermittent fire bars in it. It's really only 2 doors and a switch, but having all of that be in the dark complicates things a lot. To be fair, the murder fire also did not help. Getting through that room led me to a narrow tunnel lined with eyes, but these eyes do not perceive light, they emit it. Strongly. I found a room filled with money. Not that this is really relevant to what I was just talking about, but it's a room filled with money. I couldn't not mention the money room. If you found a money room, you'd tell people about it. Anyways, there was a quintet of eyes that I needed to get past. Luckily, I had that invisibility cape from the montage a bit ago, so I got through with relatively little trouble. This let me get the mirror shield, which absorbs light despite its name.
Mirror shield.
The shield let me access some chests that I couldn't earlier, but the invincibility cape also lets you get them, so the mirror shield really isn't all that useful. Some standard Zelda things later, and I was at the end of the dungeon. This boss actually set up a dramatic platform ride across a bottomless void to build drama. The boss is some kind of rock turtle inside of Turtle Rock, too. Meta. Anyways, it has a bright red head and a bright blue head. I wonder if the fire and ice rods I got earlier have anything to do. Oh, yep. After his 2 backup heads died, the turtle became a snake and then quickly became a dead snake. And with that, I had rescued all 7 maidens, with the last being Princess Zelda herself. She was the first maiden to have a conversation with me instead of just giving me a lore dump.
Now there we go. Now that's a collection of 7 crystals. Also, I like how you can see that where the tiles are divided. By looking at that ice, you can see they're actually grouped into 4x4 tiles, which are then considered one tile for the player. I think RPG Maker does something similar to that. Anyways, Zelda. I appreciate your coming so far to rescue me. As I thought, you are the legendary hero. I have felt this from the first time we met. Ganon is waiting inside of his tower to pass through the gate linking the 2 worlds. They said the thing! Once Ganon enters the light world, it is unlikely that anyone can stop him. Not entirely impossible, we haven't done the numbers. But if he stays in the closed space of this world, you can find him wherever he runs. Now, go to the Tower of Ganon. We will use our combined powers to break the barrier. Let's return peace to the country without fail. Do you understand? Yes. Not at all.
I didn't understand. Now it was time for me to go and take on Ganon's epilepsy-inducing Tower of Evil. This footage has been put into grayscale because I care about your eyes more than Nintendo did in 1991. The maidens used their crystal powers to break the barrier of the dungeon, which I think also could have been done with a sufficiently tall ladder. This dungeon was filled with those mice things that I mentioned a few hundred paragraphs ago. They haven't really changed at all, and they're not explained any more than the first time that I mentioned them, but it's neat that they're here. Another neat thing about this dungeon is that it's actually pretty standard. It's just more challenging. I'm actually a pretty big fan of that. It tests your skills that you've developed throughout the game instead of asking you to learn a new gimmick in the last dungeon. From testing your hookshot skills, your switch block knowledge, your fire recognition ability, and especially patience, this dungeon really just tests every skill you've developed throughout the game. Unfortunately, this does mean that most of this level is standard Zelda things, just kicked up to 11. Which means that there's not a whole lot for me to say about it. Except for this clip of me using a bomb to skip over this pit and landing on an invisible walkway. That was actually pretty cool. Oh, and I refought the first boss. It's actually pretty neat because it shows how far you've come since the first dungeon. It's also on ice, just so that the game reminds you that they've been kind enough to have only one ice dungeon in the entire game. Those guys were actually guarding the big key, making this the last key of notable size I collected in the entire game. After getting the red tunic, I was ready as I could be damage-wise and defense-wise to take on Ganon. But before that, I had to refight the second boss as well. This one was made harder by the addition of a single fireball mouth thing. I say harder, but I mean slightly more annoying. I found out that the brick cane can actually be used to navigate rooms with invisible floors a bit easier. This was nice because there is no way to see the floor in this room, as opposed to the other ones which would normally light up the floor with a torch. Also, the wizards are back, but are now dead. This makes them stronger because it's well known that what does kill you makes you stronger just as much as that which does not kill you. As the standard Zelda things continued, they kept getting harder and more oh no. It's back. The pinball machine of my nightmares. The thing I said would never be back. At least I beat it first try! And then fell down the pit instead of hookshotting that chest you can see down there on the bottom right. Oh, excellent. It respawns. This took way too long to do again. I know that it's only around a minute, but a minute with this worm is like 6 hours in a car full of people you do not like. Making my way through the last of the standard Zelda things, I knew it was time. Time for the final encounter with Ganon. This was going to be the most climactic, most impactful, and most important fight in the entire game. I gathered my courage and... what? It's Aghanim again. I mean, he's happy to see me, so that's nice, but I just thought this would be more, I don't know, dramatic, climactic? Oh, something's happening. There's a bat. Is this normal? It smashed through the pyramid. That's pretty neat.
Is this gonna be another dungeon, or is it just gonna be like, here's Ganon, here's Ganon? I never imagined a boy like you could give me so much trouble. It's unbelievable that you defeated my alter ego, Aghanim, the Dark Wizard, twice. But I will never give you the Triforce. I will destroy you and make my wish to conquer both light and dark worlds come true without delay.
I died on this fight a couple of times. His first phase isn't too difficult, but eventually he starts to destroy the floor, and Ganon unveils his secret technique of darkness. And he asked if I thought I could beat it.
You are doing well, lad, but can you break through this secret technique of darkness?
I could not. What I didn't realize at the time is that I didn't even actually have the equipment that I needed to beat him. After falling down the pit, which does reset the boss health entirely if you were wondering, I love it, I got a cosmic message from Sahasrara telling me that I needed to use the silver arrows on Ganon to kill him. Luckily, a quick stop by the fairy fountain fixed the fact that I did not have a bow that could shoot silver arrows pretty quickly, so now I was actually able to beat the boss. And beat him I did.
There we go. Half a heart with one heart. It's as clutch as it gets, ladies and gentlemen and others.
Now, I got to use the Triforce and to make any wish I wanted. I was going to wish for a new car, but Steve decided that he wanted world peace instead. Wait, he didn't die? Good for him. Oh, and my uncle's alive. That's pretty cool. I guess I can give him his sword back now. And the game ends by proudly proclaiming that the Master of Swords sleeps again. Forever. It sucks that they never made a sequel to this game. I bet it would have been pretty good.